In a decisive move to rein in exorbitant travel expenditures, President Bola Tinubu has issued a sweeping directive slashing his future entourage for both domestic and international events by a staggering 60%. This directive applies to all federal MDAs, the Office of the President, Office of the Vice President, the First Lady and wife of the Vice President. This decision came 5 weeks after Nigerians criticized the Tinubu administration for participating in the United Nations Annual Climate Summit, COP28 in Dubai, the United Arab Emirates, with 1,114 delegates. And to have deeper insight into this, I have with me in the studio Professor Sylvester Monye, former special advisor to the President, to President Jonathan on performance monitoring and evaluation, and former executive secretary of the National Planning Commission. Thank you so much, Prof, for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, you would have heard of this decision by President Bola Tinubu to actually cut down the cost of governance. Should we refer to this as tokenism? And then should it also be seen as an austerity measure?
Well, first of all, we need to begin to be objective in our analysis. I'm of PDP stock, but after politics, after elections, we need to confront policies. Any policy that is designed to further the good of the country should be applauded. I have absolutely no issues with Tinubu's policies. Actually, I like most of the policies and I support them. I don't want to go into specifics, but on the broad theme, I love his policies. I think they're in the right direction. Where I have issues is the implementation of those policies. For example, the idea of cutting travel size and votes is good. But what does it amount to? You give people opportunity to begin to doubt and discuss such noble actions where they are not properly communicated. For example, what is the president's travel vote ab initio? If you say you are cutting 60%, 60% of what?
Yeah, I mean, that's what Peter Obi is also asking.
60% of what?
This looks like tokenism.
No, well,
we haven't heard the figures.
It may not be tokenism,
hearing.
but you need to know the meaning of that 60%. It is not about cutting the number of people in the delegation. To be honest with you, what people don't understand in government is that when the president is traveling, perhaps 80% of those who travel with him are paid for themselves. So you may see a large delegation, but it doesn't necessarily translate to government delegation. They may as a matter of fact, if he was going to New York, a lot of Nigerian businessmen will fly to New York to go and meet him there, because sometimes it's easier to see the president outside the country than inside the country. So the size of the delegation may or may not have anything to do with...
Yeah, but we're talking about the official delegation.
The official delegation, you start from somewhere. What is the travel vote of the MDAs? Assuming you have 1 trillion as the travel votes of the MDAs, and you say, I'm cutting out 60%. And this 60% that I'm cutting, I'm going to put it in education. I'm going to put it in healthcare. So people will see tangibly what it is that you are doing. But if you say, I cut 60%, people will say, another talk. Because there are no ways of measuring such gestures, as it were. So I am comfortable with the cut. I don't want to call it austerity measure. It is a step in the right direction. But it needs to be, one, better implemented and better communicated. Those are the two critical issues that I think they need to work on.
Now, if Tinubu is going abroad, he says he's going to go with 20 people now. And then, of course, if it's within the country, you have the number of people who he's actually going to be having. And if it's the First Lady, if she's going abroad, she'll just be having 5 members of her official delegation, including Vice President. People are beginning to assess some of this and saying that, look, there are security implications to this also, especially for the local travel, that the president is saying that, look, the state he's going to will provide the security architecture. Did the president actually think this with his team before actually making this announcement?
Well,
that's what people are asking.
Well, it's a good question, but let me tell you the mistake the people who communicate these things make. You cannot include a luggage officer, ADC, all those personal staff you see around the president as part of the delegation. They are not part of the delegation. They may be traveling with him, but are they part of the delegation? The answer is no. So we sometimes mix up the issue of his security people. What has security people got to do with his delegation?
Yeah, but I just want you to take a look at that footage that's coming from Dubai. I mean, there are lots of people that many Nigerians kicked against, saying that several people honestly, on that delegation in Dubai, I mean, they didn't have any reason to be there.
I can't speak for the government. I can't speak for APC on the size of the delegation.
Yeah, but Dubai. You've worked in the office of the president. That's what's the best practice like?
You see, let me tell you, have you ever seen American president's delegation? Have you ever seen the Indian Prime Minister delegation? The purpose of a delegation is that you have something to do. If a president is going to another country, it is a major issue. It's a major undertaking. Therefore, you expect Nigeria to benefit from that undertaking. So, what you do, you couple together the people that you think will benefit or how the country will benefit from that trip. You bring private sector people, social commentators, all sorts of people that are relevant to that trip. You bring them together. The size is good. I mean, to talk about size is good, but it's a case of the relevance of that size to what you are going to do. What are the deliverables at the end of the day? I hear people say, oh, we got an investment of 1 trillion, we got investment. It's neither here nor there. What matters is that where are those investments going to? Are they going to agriculture, industry, manufacturing, mines? You need to be a little bit more concrete to say GE has committed to investing 1 billion in medical technology in Nigeria. So you need to be more real. You see, we trivialize some of these communications because it sounds good. No. As a government, we need to be serious. We need to be honest with Nigerians. We need to say, look, we have traveled, we made some contacts, we are in discussion, or we sign MOU for a company to begin exploratory discussion with other companies in Nigeria. Because government has no business in business, as you know. It is the government's job to create the enabling environment for business people to do the business. So you can't go and say, I bring investment. Bring investment to where?
Interesting question indeed.
Bring investment
and a lot of people keep asking those questions. Now, let's take a look at how the Americans, for example, run their presidency, where we copy this presidential system from. Whenever the American president is traveling, he goes with a large delegation because Correct. The U.S. system doesn't want to present an American president as someone who doesn't know anything about everything.
Yes.
So they have an expert on every subject matter that the president is going to be speaking about. And that gives you the illusion as an outsider that the American president knows everything. Should we also have had the president rethink this kind of decision to reflect that, so that we don't have our president actually speaking about something that he doesn't know because he doesn't have an expert in his delegation?
Well, I expect, let me tell you what I know in government, in the presidency. If president was going to London, there will be a team of people inside government, private sector, that's what they call pre-travel meeting. They meet to analyze who is he going to meet, what are they going to discuss, what are the expected benefits from the trip. This is all planned and coordinated by the chief of staff. And the president is properly briefed. So no president travels without this pre-meeting. Sometimes it involves Reiki. People go abroad to check for themselves, for the government, what is likely to see, who is the routes, and these things are done. But it's the execution that is the problem. And I like I said, I have no problem whatsoever with the policies of the administration. Can I tell you something? As much as I don't have problem with the policies, everybody knew that he inherited a rotten economy.
Well,
but can I say something?
Which the APC refused to actually mention during the campaigns, because I mean, it's their own government.
He is not going to disentangle himself from the mess because he supported Buhari. He did. So he must take part of the responsibility. Now he has inherited the mess. Now the issue is for us to see how big is the mess. How do we get out of this mess? It is not about the journey. How long is the journey? It is what steps are we taking to actualize that journey. That is the critical issue. Yeah. I worry when I hear people say, oh, this is not us, this is us. No, government is a continuum. You continue from where you inherited. But the question is, when you inherited the mess, what are the milestones, indicators, plans that you have in place to deliver us to the promised land? Yeah,
and that's why I brought you here, actually. Talk to us, having been someone at the National Planning Commission, do you think that this government is actually having a roadmap, a plan towards strengthening the economy? Because in those days we used to have national development plans, and people keep wondering why we don't have them. All the Vision 2010 that Abacha had, which was drafted by late Ernest Shoneko and his team, and we see and hear that there's a certain Vision 2050, but it looks like the governments that are coming are not being faithful to that desire for Vision 2050 to come up. If you go to countries like Saudi Arabia, there's a Vision 2030, and you see the Crown Prince is pursuing it wholeheartedly. You go to Qatar, you go to even some African countries like Malawi. Some of these measures are being taken to ensure that the nation knows where exactly it's going to, irrespective of the government in power. Do we look like people who are heading towards a particular vision?
Well, you're preaching to the converted. Let me tell you, before the Vision 2010, what led to Vision 2010. You know, it was a private sector-led initiative. I captured it correctly to say that Ernest Shoneko chaired it. What happened was that we were doing National Development Plan, and then the military came in, we did SAP. After SAP, then we couldn't, oil prices were all over the place. We couldn't meet with our plans. Then now they started, look, if we plan and we don't execute successfully, we roll it over. They started a rolling plan. And that rolling plan became an annual plan. It was difficult for the private sector to really plan their future investment without knowing where the country itself was going to. That was what led to the private sector. I think it was one of the first initiatives of the NESG. They met together and said, look, let's talk to these people. They're messing us up. Who are the investors? They set up this. They went to the then head of state, Abacha, and said, look, look, we will produce a plan for you. Don't get involved. Just support us. Give us the political support. We'll do it. And once we do it, we'll bring it to you. And that's what they did. They did it, produced it, presented it to Abacha. He liked it, endorsed it, but it was never implemented. So Vision 2010 was a document that was never implemented to today.
And yet it had lofty visions. That
had
a lot of
ideas,
people, government kept quoting over and
ideas
over.
By those who needed that material. They know what they want. They know how they will get there. They know the contributions of the private sector. You see, one of the things people don't understand about planning is that when you say, I want the economy to grow by 10% every year for the next 10 years, and that's the only way we can achieve poverty reduction. It's a plan. You now have what you call the growth drivers. What are those things that will drive that growth that you're looking for? Is it agriculture? Is it ICT? Is it telecom? What is it? So you need to do your numbers and say, if we put money here, this is the outcome we expect. If we do this, so that is how you plan. You can't just say or decrease something and it happens. It doesn't happen anywhere. Now let me say something about, I produced a book last year called The Compendium of National Development Plans between 1999 and 2020. And I am a little bit shocked because I know President Bola Tinubu. I was in Adeko with him for 3 years, so I know him. His brain is like a razor, very sharp. But so far, there is no sign to me that they have any plans to produce a medium-term plan. I have not seen it.
How about the ones that are being submitted to the National Assembly for the
That's a budget.
Yes.
That's a budget. Budget is an annual plan.
And do you think that cutting the cost of governance is also a part of an overarching projection by President Tinubu, for his 4-year government? Because critics have also said that with these new measures that he has brought in place in 2024, it looks like he decided to pick up, because people thought that he would start this immediately he was, sworn in. But we didn't see that. Instead, we saw a bloated executive with 48 ministers, and people are wondering what exactly is going on. And now we hear that there are plans to actually restructure the federal cabinet and maybe remove some people or whatever. Do you think that President Tinubu is beginning to say, look, maybe I made some early mistakes and it's time for me to actually have a concrete plan?
It's not a bad thing if you make a mistake and you trace your steps. It's not a bad thing. But the point is that, let me give you an analogy. I flew in this morning from Asaba. As I sat in the plane, I was looking at the pilots, just before takeoff. They were doing a lot of pre-takeoff plans. And it occurred to me that the job of a pilot, once he takes off, is not to manage the plane, is to observe the implementation of the plan, because the plan would have been executed before takeoff. So a pilot sits down, just monitoring the computers to say, are we on course? If not, what is the problem? What is air temperature? That is the way a country is. I expected that they should have come in with a plan.
Well, they said they have an 8-point agenda. I don't know if you're aware of that.
No, you see.
And then, of course, there's a renewed hope agenda, what they used during the campaign.
Good. You see, there's a difference between a campaign document, a policy campaign document, from a medium-term plan. After politics, you do governance. You start governance with a roadmap. That roadmap is supposed to be produced by National Planning Commission and the related agencies. To put flesh to that skeleton, you bring 8-point agenda. What is the 8-point agenda? You bring them, they will not translate it into a workable plan that puts deliverables, milestones, costs, and all that.
Isn't that what President Tinubu is doing? Even though we don't have a fiscal document yet, but at least he's saying that, look, I'm going to cut my
what is
my entourage.
What
and
is
any minister who misbehaves will
what
be
is
fired.
the base of that cut?
This is where we are heading to.
What is the base of that cut? You see, we should rise above ad hoc measures.
You think this is an ad hoc measure?
Well, I don't see the link between this measure and the plan. I mean, I will be very happy to say, oh yes, this is in line with the plan. I asked you an elementary question at the beginning. When you say you are cutting the cost of travel by 60%, what does that translate to? We don't know, because there is no, at least transparency. It's definitely not in the open.
Open governance.
Yeah, it's not there. So if I knew that, look, this cut will save us 600 billion annually, then you applaud him. That's one. Two, saving is one thing. What do you do with the savings? Then you say to people, look, I'm going to save this money. Instead of traveling, we're going to put it in healthcare. I want to do that. So Nigerians will say, okay, it's a good policy, it's a good decision, and we'll see the outcome. No, so you have to have purpose for everything you do. You have, okay, people are complaining, I cut. Okay, after cutting, what next?
Okay, very interesting submission you've got here, because this is the same President Tinubu while he was in the opposition in 2010, 2011, when he wrote to then President Goodluck Jonathan. He has said that President Jonathan was embarking on austerity measures alongside with then Minister of Finance Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, based on the IMF model, and it shouldn't work, or it won't work properly, that Nigeria is one nation with two economies. That's what I'm quoting him now. If you look at the fiscal policies that he's put in place now, with the exchange rate and all of that, and with the moves we've seen from 2024, do you think that there are more steps being that we should be expecting as we move into the months ahead, considering how he has started in 2024?
Well, I can tell you something, that being a president is definitely different from being a governor. A governor is different from being a local government chairman. What you see as a president, you can't see it as a governor. And what a governor sees, a local government chairman cannot see it. So whatever position he took before was predicated on what he saw or what he knew. Now it's a different reality altogether. So he is adjusting. It's going to take a bit of time. I mean, I was listening to some commentators talk about possible cabinet changes and all that stuff. For me, it's too early.
You think so?
It's definitely too early.
What if they come to him, and what if his assessment shows that his cabinet is not performing so much?
Assessment based on what? You see, this is the problem I have. You can't assess a minister either because he has not exhausted his budget. There's a difference between budget and actual implementation. We don't have the capacity, the absorptive capacity to absorb maybe 50% of our budget. It's just there. Have you ever seen any year that you know, as an analyst, that Nigeria spent 80% of their budget? Have you seen it? There are two factors here. One is factor of revenue. And the second one is, do we have the capacity to spend the money? If you put Minister of Works, take their budget, give them the money, can they spend it in 1 year? Give them all the money that you have in the budget. Can Minister of Works spend it? Don't forget, you have to do procurement, you have to do implementation. Are you going to run on a road? Won't you grade it? Won't you tie it? There are so many processes that you cannot force.
Okay, one quick issue here. You said yourself and President Bola Tinubu were together in Nadeko. And I mean, I really picked that up. And I want you to take us through the mind of this person, having seen him while he was in the opposition, then in the trenches. And what sort of expectations you think Nigerians would have much of him, having been someone who was talking about restructuring, fiscal federalism, cutting the cost of governance, including telling a former president that he was a neophyte, a kindergarten president, and now he's on that seat, and it looks like it's not really easy.
It's a sub-kindergarten.
Because I mean, the decisions are very, very huge, and several millions of Nigerians are facing the challenges.
I just said to you, it is easier to say something when you're on the other side. Once you're on the driver's seat, what you don't know, you begin to see it. And when you see it, you begin to adjust. That's why they say politicians are not consistent. Because when you are campaigning, you say, for example, I hear legislators, when they campaign, they say, I'll do road, I'll do bridges, I'll do this for my community. They say all those things because they want to be elected. When they now get elected, they discover that they don't have the means of doing those things. Then they start fighting for constituency projects.
Are you saying Bola Tinubu doesn't have the means of restructuring the country, or there's no political will?
It is too early for him to have achieved those things he proposed as an opposition person. It will take time. He's a very intelligent man. I can tell you that, quote me. Bola Tinubu is a very intelligent man. He has the capacity to put together what it takes, but the mistake people made, or they were making, was suggesting that when we get there in the first 1 year, we'll do this, in the first 2 years. No. This economy that we have, it will take 3 to 5 years to get us out of this mess. He will suffer the abuse for the next 5 years. Quote me, Nigerians will abuse him, but my advice to him is take the abuse, but stay on course. He's doing the right things, but very unpopular things. So let him just get ready for more abuse.
Yeah, just before I let you go, very quickly, how soon should we be having a national plan by this government, if it indeed wants to go through those sort of phases that we used to in the past, having national development plans and then keen to it, and visions as we have it in other countries?
One, I'm not a member of this government.
Yeah,
so
I mean, you're a Nigerian.
You're
a Nigerian.
I can't answer.
And you can advise him as to how
soon,
important that document is.
It's very important. You say, how soon can we have it? First thing is, I am not in a position to how soon.
But you can
However,
advise.
but I'll tell you, it is important that we have a medium-term plan. Now, there's a difference also between a budget and a medium-term plan. There is something that has been missing in our planning ecosystem. We need to be more open with our plans. We need to engage more on Nigerians. We need to tell them what we want to do. You see, I take examples from countries that I have seen do well with planning. They do well because you engage people, you take farmers, you take everybody and say, how do we do it? But most importantly, you bring the states.
All right.
Because the states are those who implement the plan. It's not the federal government. Federal government has no territory called federal government territory. Forget Abuja.
Maybe except FCT.
Yeah, except FCT. So if you want to implement road, it is in a state. You must carry the states along, and possibly local government, before you can produce a plan that is workable. Let me just tell you, I know you're in a hurry.
Yeah.
You see, one of the things I discovered, because having worked at the federal level, we thought we did all the things that we were supposed to do correctly. Then I went to the states. I discovered that the states didn't pay any attention to what people would do in Abuja.
So there's a disconnection.
There's a complete disconnection between federal government and the states. States do their own thing. They listen to you, they applaud you, but they do their own thing. So we need to have a plan that actually commits the states and the federal government and all the stakeholders to say, this is a plan that will take all of us to the promised land.
All right, Professor Monye, we must thank you so much for providing this insight. But I just want us, before I end this conversation, to read out what President Tinubu has said while he was in the opposition then, that regardless of our partisan affiliations, let us consecrate this land by dedicating ourselves to the betterment of the poor, weak, and needy members of our national family. So the states and federal government and local governments should all see this as a Nigerian project.
But they need
no
leadership.
Disconnection.
They need leadership.
Yeah, you have said he has the capacity to provide the leadership.
Yes.
So, the next 3 years will actually show us if indeed he has the capacity. We must thank you so much, Professor Sylvester Monye, the former presidential aide on performance monitoring and evaluation, to former President Goodluck Jonathan, and then, of course, former Executive Secretary of the National Planning Commission. Thank you so much for being on the program.